Welcome to the Begin with Yes show with your host, Paul Boynton.
Hey, welcome to our very first Begin with Yes video. We are experimenting with how to take this incredible Begin with Yes Facebook page and community and to make it go one step further, one step deeper, and create an opportunity for us to actually begin talking with each other face to face and voice to voice. And so this is our sort of beginning of that, and I'm very excited about what's ahead, and I'm so glad that you're here for the very first time. I want to give a shout out to David Bellman, who, if it wasn't for David, he's a guy I've known for a long time, and he's worked with me in various capacities, but he kept saying, Paul, you need to do a TV show. And so his gentle nudges and his not so gentle nudges got me here today. And so thank you, David, for not giving up on me. And then I want to tell you about my first guest, who is this amazing woman who I've known for a long time, but we haven't seen each other for several years. And so we just had a mini reunion when she walked in the door, and now we're going to sort of continue that, getting to know each other again with all of you. So Kate Benway Yerkes, welcome. Hi. When I first knew you, you were Kate Benway, and now you're Kate Benway Yerkes. Yeah. And you have gone through like this tremendous life transformation, which kind of amazes me, because I think when you tell your story, people will get why it was such a significant leap of faith. And I'm not even sure if that's the right thing to call it, but from my perspective, it seems like it was a leap of faith. So could you tell us a little bit about what you did sure. Like 6 or 7 years ago, or was it even more?
Yeah,
or less?
Like 6 or 7 at this point. Yeah.
All right.
So for a long time, about 12 years, I had a really great career in marketing, kind of this mainstream business career.
That's how we first met?
That's how we first met, yep. And, I got there in a really traditional way, went to college, majored in journalism, that kind of a thing. But throughout that time, there was really a truth about me, and it wasn't something I chose to conceal. It was something I wasn't yet square with.
Okay.
And that is that I see dead people.
All right.
And I am incredibly psychic. I know things I shouldn't know. Since I was a child, I would see people float into my room at night. I would wake up with what looked like humans standing over my bed.
Were those things scary?
I was terrified.
Yeah, you were. I would be.
What I saw wasn't ominous. It wasn't like Sixth Sense. I didn't see gory scenes.
Okay.
But I was afraid to sleep for most of my life. And so it wasn't like a secret I harbored. It was just sort of something I couldn't make sense of.
All right.
And that always was sort of going on below the surface. I do think that's why I was a good communicator and marketer.
Yeah, I think I should just interrupt you for a second and say you were fantastic as a PR person.
Thank you.
I mean, you had a lot of impressive clients. You were doing a pretty traditional kind of PR work, but you were very, very good at it. So that could have been your lifelong career for sure.
Easily. And it, when I say it was safe, it doesn't mean I wasn't working hard, I wasn't hustling. It was safe in the sense that it wasn't really all of me. Right. And so while I was really talented and good and a natural, and I had beautiful, true relationships there, this other part of me wanted to come out. And I never knew that it wanted to come out the way it does. It was always something I was kind of managing below the surface. But probably in my late 20s, that was the first time that I really said out loud, I see dead people. This is what happens. My sleep is interrupted every night.
Is this a family thing? I mean, is this?
I on my mom's side, I think that there's some pretty intuitive people, some really open people. But my understanding is that no one has this way. And so really when I talked about it for the first time, it was almost like therapy. Right. I had no intention of doing anything or starting a business. I just wanted to sleep through the night, frankly. So I really had worked with a nice spiritual mentor and coach and understood what was happening for me. And as that was kind of coming out and I was naming it and understanding it and its presence in my life, that is really where I think a force bigger than me kind of took over. And I was really moved into like a spiritual path.
I love the terminology coming out because, from my standpoint, that has significant meaning.
Yes.
But I've sort of come to believe that everyone is sort of withholding parts of themselves from the rest of the world. And sometimes they're the most magnificent parts that they're hiding or holding back. So,
indeed. It's funny you say that. I would never want to misappropriate that and sort of take that term coming out as my own. But in fact, I call 2010 the summer of coming out.
Yeah.
I had lunch with 20 people. And what I told those people is, I need to tell you something really important and truthful about me. And if you decided that you didn't like me or love me, it would really rock my boat. So I need to tell you 20 first so I know where I stand. I cried through most of those lunches. Some other people cried. No one said that they didn't like me or love me any longer. Most people began asking me a lot of questions. And it was really cathartic for me. We share that experience. I was born a certain way. There's nothing I can do to change it.
Right.
And the more I step into that truth and accept myself, the more other people accept me.
Right.
And that summer of coming out, lots of tears, was really how it all began for me.
And at that point, you were still doing your regular job and going to work every morning and being a PR professional. And so, but at some point, you jumped.
I did.
And I can't imagine that wasn't filled with some fear or some anxiety.
Terrified.
Oh, all right. I was wondering. I was afraid you were going to say, "Oh no, it was easy." It was like,
I look back on how afraid I was, and I realized I was struggling to accept my own self. We project out into the world what's happening in our inner world. And so this struggle of leaving a traditional career path and moving into something spiritual, I think that there are other people who do it with more ease. There are other people who see me now and think, why did you have trouble with this? But I was struggling to accept that I was going to leave a position as director of marketing. I had a fair amount of clout and a lot of respect, and I was going to become a practicing psychic, medium, and life coach. And so for a long time, the first step I took, really to begin with, was, okay, I'll do this. Let me figure out how to structure my life so that it's not like ripping a Band-Aid off and I can remain stable. And I began doing freelance marketing and began seeing, folks in the spiritual sense on the side.
Okay.
And for a couple of years, I did those two things. And that was really like the first begin with yes moment. I was still hiding.
Yeah.
I was. But I was at least, taking that first step.
I think that, there's a real important lesson in that as I listen to you, because so many people think that they have one of two choices, and that's like either stay where I am or do something that I want to do, but that is totally outside the realm of what I've been doing up until this point. And there are lots of small steps you can take in between those steps. So in retrospect, it seems to me like a huge step, but you're saying that you sort of began experimenting with it and moving in that direction without completely letting go of what you had on the other side. The other side may not be the right word to use with you.
Double entendre, right.
But so how long did that sort of transition happen?
So in about 2009, 2010, I began doing that, sort of working, I think in some ways leading two lives while I got comfortable with it. And then in 2012, I left my job. I was director of public affairs at a college. I had benefits. I had a really fantastic career that was on its way up. I had a baby who was 8 months old. I had been married for about 2 years. And I came home to my husband one day and I said, I can't do this any longer. I have to be true. I have to be who I am. I can't half and half it anymore. And he said, I've been waiting for you to say this. Wow. And so in typical fashion, Tom and I fashion, I sob and he listens for 45 minutes to my soliloquy and then responds with, of course I support you. So I left my job. I gave 2 weeks notice. And fortunately I had my husband and he carried the benefits and that logistic was helpful. Right. But it was an enormous leap. And frankly, I think as a woman, getting off a professional career path, you don't really ever quite get that place back. If I wanted to go back, I'd have to probably go down a couple and work back up.
Right.
So there was a real risk I was taking and getting off of that train. But I couldn't bottle the truth anymore. I couldn't not be who I am. And I needed to really give it all I had.
I think sometimes when people listen to these kinds of stories, they sort of either imagine or, and many times it is true that some people make these kinds of transitions very easily. They have a supportive husband, their family standing around saying, go do it. And other people, it's a bigger challenge. And do you have something that you can offer sort of as an insight to folks that those kinds of transitions might not come as easily for them?
Yeah. While I was really fortunate that my husband did have those benefits, I was making half of our income. So under no circumstances did he then or does he now subsidize what I do at all. We were a 2-income household. And at the time, like I said, I had a 7-month-old baby, and I was actually in the throes of pretty significant postpartum depression, probably that lowest year of my life, really. And so there was this way that I brainstormed and said, okay, let me do a little bit of freelance marketing to generate some income. So I was still doing a little bit of that while I was moving really full-time to doing clients, because the leap didn't happen overnight, right? Like the client base didn't suddenly materialize overnight. So I was doing that freelance marketing. I was taking care of my son. I was trying to put myself back together, quite frankly, with the postpartum depression. And so one of the things that I said then, and I say even more now, is look for your blessings and look for the gratitude. So there are areas where I had a couple of really nice wins or some really nice support that maybe someone else wouldn't have. Right. Or someone else sitting next to me might have had a couple of things that I didn't have. But there was a lot to be grateful for. And I also really valued then, and I value now, releasing. So when you confidently and fear can sit next to each other. When you can release what no longer works for you, what you know is no longer right for you, even though you may not see the outcome right away, I do think there's something in that. And I think the satisfaction of releasing what doesn't work and the faith-building process of that beginning with yes really ends up being a payoff that, if you stay in the moment, feels good.
I think, that reminds me of I've talked to so many people who have a sense for where they want to go, but they're waiting for the universe to show up and help them. And it's almost like the universe doesn't really show up to help you until you sort of step off into the unknown. And then some of the things that you can't even really imagine that come to support you or lift you up or help you, things you might not have even recognized that you needed, begin to appear. And I'm not trying to create this false narrative that things are necessarily always easy, or it doesn't take a lot of hard work, or the universe just lifts you up and carries you to the next spot, because it's not exactly like that.
Right.
But what almost never happens is the universe doesn't show up until you step off the cliff. And
So one of the things I've really valued in this process is, do I have some nice things going for me? Yes. Was I on the path to my truth? Yes. But it was hard, and I was terrified. And though those first 20 people didn't tell me, I won't support you, I did have people after that who said, I can't have a relationship with you anymore. My religion says you're wrong. My religion says you're going to hell. The landscape of my life has completely changed. But one of the things I valued through this process was doing my own personal work. And that's advice I give my clients a lot. So we often are looking outside of us for that validation. What's the sign? Where's the universe? Where's the big red light telling me what to release? And sure, that stuff is happening. But when you go inside and you heal yourself, that actually, in my opinion, catalyzes your steps and builds that momentum. And so instead of saying the universe owes me something, I say in my life and to my clients, what in me needs healing? And through this process, I'm really not doing it justice talking about how terrified I was. I was terrified to be rejected. I was terrified that people would no longer respect me. But you know what? That's my projection from my inner world. Mm-hmm. And a part of me didn't respect me. And so for those couple of years, I worked on that. I got my own coach, and I worked on the part of me that was letting me down.
Okay.
And that really moved me forward in a powerful way. And that wasn't pretty, and there were a lot of tears. But to me, that's sort of the stuff of the path.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kate, we're going to come back and do part 2 of this, and we're going to talk about some of the things that that might be challenges right now as you move forward. And but can you just tell people how they can find you real quickly?
Sure. Yeah. So the name of my business is Intrepid 11, okay. 11 spelled out, and you can find me online at intrepid11.com.
And I shouldn't probably say this, but I know you have a huge waiting list, don't you?
I do. So I'm booked out 10 months right now.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So.
But you can hop on the waiting list, but I do events and talks and
Okay.
workshops and meditation groups. So folks can come to those usually sooner than the 10-month wait for a solo session.
All right. We'll come right back
Great.
and keep this going. Thank you so much for being with our very first Begin With Yes video. I hope you've enjoyed chatting with Kate as much as I have. And watch for part 2, where we're going to look at some of the challenges Kate's facing right now and maybe together create some strategies to move forward in ways that are meaningful and maybe sometimes a little bit easier than they might have been had we not had this chat. So thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next time.